Oh
Hey,
no.
stop clicking around because I need to show you this.
Oh my gosh. That was terrible.
Good luck.
All right, now this is fabulous, but I wanted to actually show our guest today. So I'm just going to go and say hello to Dave Liebman. Hi,
Hello.
Dave Liebman.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
I'm so I'm so very I didn't say this to you before when we were speaking, but I'm very honored to have you on and to that you're sharing your time here and it's really it's very nice. Thank you. Um, Boy, Dave Liebman has so many things that he's done and is doing that it's it's a little overwhelming to think of what to ask him. But I'm going to do my best. Um, you know, actually, it's funny. Jay Clayton has joined. So
Uh,
we were talking about you, Jay.
right.
Um, um, I think I'd like to start with now, if you don't mind, like now, and then kind of go backwards because there's so much in your history to talk about, and I'd like to know what you're doing now, and maybe it was pre-pandemic that there was more things happening, or maybe not. Maybe you're doing a lot now. You're probably teaching a lot. I'm assuming.
I am teaching a lot, and my room is not that big, but they come and they're from 5 countries at the same time. It's really amazing, actually. Um, so that's one element. Um, the other is, of course, the pandemic and its effect on everybody. And basically, you can't play in New York, not yet.
Yeah.
You can stream, Dream, and Brom, and Boom, and do all kinds of stuff. Basically, your platform has been at least moved over for a while. So I'm learning how to play mezzo piano.
Mm. And
I was just talking to somebody before you, and I said, I was one of my old students who's in my band now, and I said, well, I said, Matt, one thing I'm going to learn is how. Cause he said, can you play in the studio in the apartment? I haven't really tested it because I'm playing very soft. I said, I'm becoming an expert on MP, not MP3, MP, mezzo piano. So
right.
that's one thing I'm doing. Last couple of weeks, I've been involved in 2 new projects. One is I have voluminous big band charts, 60, 70 of my tunes,
Wow.
all done by different people. And I was just approached by a company that's going worldwide, so maybe ones that could be profitable.
Wow.
Um,
So
to
I'm sorry, did you said done by different people? Did you mean arranged or okay.
arrange,
Yeah.
not 60 people, but let's say 45, and a couple doubles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also, standards and originals divided up into two things. Um, but so I'm giving them 10 charts to do, and we're with my assistant, we're putting that together. And then I did a workshop at Chicago in a saxophone store in 2017 or 18, and I deemed it worthy of release. So we're working on the cover and so forth. It's going to be Dave Liebman at the PM shop. That's the guy's name.
Ah.
And
Did you, I don't know what year you released this latest book of yours. Was
uh,
that,
the Art of Skills,
yes.
that's just came like in the last month or so. It's like a little handbook. It's like 50 pages. I hesitate to call it a book because it's not that grandiose.
Yeah.
But it's about, I've written a lot, and it's a collection of other thoughts, not spiritual, but how to handle yourself, what to do, how to become who you are, how to get out of copying, and a bunch of different stuff. And I have a guy who's a publisher who was really interested in what I do, so I'm
Yeah.
taking advantage of it. And that's kind of what we're at now. And I have some physical things. I have always had. I had polio as a kid, but now I'm fighting and getting a new hip and getting the right blood vessels. So I'm on crutches, and that slows me down a little bit. And I don't know what it would be like when traveling soon resumes, if it does resume in the same way.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. So it's usual. I'm pretty busy.
Right. I guess there's not going to be any moss under your feet, huh? um,
It's a good way.
let's see. So, had you before the pandemic, were you traveling a lot, or were you basically in New York, or?
I was going. Last 20, 30 years, I've been in Europe. I'm probably once a month in Europe, or the equivalent of that. All over each country, I have a different rhythm section. Sometimes I take my guys. Big band teaching's a big part of it, of course. And of course, that all stopped, and we had 3 or 4 gigs that were to come, and they got called off. And I think the thing that's changed that musicians are going to feel is the lack of the lowering of funding from European governments, because this music has been supported by Europe in the end. and I mean, I'm making up a wide swath here, but basically it's the government in Northern Europe, and almost restricted to northern, northwestern. Um, the governments have supported jazz,
Yeah.
and they haven't, been prejudiced against you being American. I'm not a European,
Yeah.
so I've cultivated that minefield since the '80s, when I saw the writing on the wall that the jazz thing, that America will always have the music and have the brotherhood, but as far as the future goes, it's going to be tough without funding. You got to fund the arts. I mean, it's four things you're supposed to fund. Like education, health, what do you call it, history, and military. I got to put it in there, whether for better or worse. And they don't give us for culture. So I saw that coming in the '80s, and I figured, you know what? I better make relationships with European musicians who are fine and who are great and have their own way of doing things. So I cultivated that. Would go over. They paid me very well. They liked me. I liked them. I spoke a little French. Blah blah blah. And I was able to really make a scene with Jan Christensen, Bobo Stenson. Some very well known, some known only in their country. Joachim Kuhn. People like that. And they have another way of playing, and I must say, it affected my playing. That's an element that uh, describing as an element, but those elements became part of my oeuvre and my work schedule, and it was because I was in the middle of the Scandinavian sound, the ECM sound. I was in Italy. In Italy, you're exposed to trumpet players, something about the trumpet in Italy, and vocal and singing and beautiful melodies, and everybody's got a beautiful voice and all that stuff. Uh, France is more not show business, but the theatre, the theater.
Yes.
Monteverdi and the whole kind of
Yeah. Sparkly.
yeah, French, very French. That became my best country. That was the country that gave me
Ah,
an award from the government.
ah,
Blah, blah. But, so that was what was happening right up until this thing happened.
yeah. Oh, wow. Who is in your latest band?
Young guys in the 30s, uh, Matt Vashlishin on reeds, Bobby Avey, piano, fantastic. Same bass player for 40 years, Tony Marino,
Mm.
and when was he? Me, of course. And we've done like 4 or 5 records, toured a little bit, but I call the group Expansions because every 10 years the music changes. I mean, you can really make a case. You can know this if you put on rhythm changes or blues, and have 50 years of that particular blues. Well, blues is different because it's chords. Chords. I mean, it's just we could go through it here, but every 10 years there's been another way of playing that you hear when you hear standards. That's when you know.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, and had that group with Vic Jurors for 23 years, and I thought that it's time for me to jump the ship and get into the party. I don't want to be left out. Because when they play impressions or all blues, all standby tunes that we know from our generation, they treat it differently. I mean, how can you treat that differently? Believe me, you can find out. You can do it.
Mm.
So I felt like I was being expanded. Things, my sensibilities, my skills were being expanded, and on my side, they had the chance to play with me with my experience and everything that I've done. So that's why the group's called Expansions.
Cool.
And we have a Coltrane record coming out in the fall around his 95th birthday, where we did arrangements, so different arrangements of the stuff. And I have a big band, Coltrane, coming at the same time on another label. I somehow find these fools.
Holy moly.
I know, find them, and I say, well, I have about 5 different recipes. Which one would you like, the afternoon one or the night one? And somehow I've been able to record a lot. And I'm a big believer in recording because, first of all, it's the only way people get to know who you are. Right? That's obvious. But and I learned this from Miles really because he was very on this, which is like you can really change things in the studio and hear the result in 2 minutes. By the time you get a cup of coffee, you're already it's already a new segue and a new way
Yeah.
of playing the same tune, and I like that. I mean, because I can really be free in the studio. I'm pretty good in the studio, and pull all the forces together and get attention and the chance to try stuff. It's like, let's just try this thing. 8 bars, just give me that. Cool. I said, no problem, Lee. Got it. Boom, 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 boom. Let's keep it in. Let's not. Wasn't a good idea, et cetera, et cetera. So it's been able to fit in over 500 records because,
Over 500, is that what you said?
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah. It,
Wow,
it,
that is a
it, exhausts,
lot.
it exhausts me to say it. Believe me. That's as sideman and leader, and leader and co-leader is about 100, 150 because everywhere I go, I'm asked to put the music together. So
Wow.
yeah, it sounds crazy, but it's true.
It does sound crazy, but wow, that's amazing. Wow. I have well, Steffens is here. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Michael.
Joyce Glasgow and Taylor Hatch. And he said, "You're such a terrific author. I was wondering what inspired you to create your book, A Chromatic Approach to Jazz Harmony and Melody. What prompted you to explore those areas?"
Well, by the '80s, what I had done with Elvin Jones, a particular record called Live at the Lighthouse,
Hmm.
and in LA, and that record was full of all kinds of stuff that we were getting into. Post Coltrane, let me put it this way,
Yeah.
Coltrane, Coltrane, equivalent to Coltrane's left toe, but in Coltrane's case, I was playing, so we were left with the remnants, and I would do clinics, and clinics became more numerous in the '80s. It started to really happen.
Yeah.
And the question I would get from, it wasn't beginners or something like the transcription or how to breathe and all that stuff, but they would say, that record you made with Elvin and the record with John McLaughlin, and, they would name a couple that I did. And so they said, what are you thinking of when you play outside? I said, for a while, I just said, well, you go up a half step, it's sound dissonant. Fourths are very important intervals to disturb the key center. If you have fourths, no key center directly.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah. And I realized that I really owe it to whoever they are to try to explain this on paper and how we get to that way of playing. So first it was going to be me and Richie Byrack, who some of you might know as my, longtime partner. And he copped a plea at the end. He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to put it on paper. I was all for putting it on paper. And it's a hard book. It's like the Lydian book, like George's book. Everybody reads it because they have to. In my book, this came out in 1990, but of course it's gone down. But it's a book. Did you read Liebman's book? Like that kind of thing. And it was trying to be an explanation of what we think of harmonically. That's why I call it approach to jazz harmony and melody. And it got well received. And one of the first people was Matheny, and then Mick Goodrick, guitar players,
Yeah.
who I would think have trouble because I'm a piano player, when I do those kinds of things. But guitar players seize the opportunity. They said, no, you can do voicing number 23 on page 91. You know, you got into very, very specific and noteworthy. And the book is, for people who really want to know what I'm thinking about, and through me, a whole generation. That's what the book is about.
Yeah.
Completely musical. Self-portrait of a jazz artist is metaphysical. This new one just came out is different, but this is all about music and just maybe a particular attitude you need to play like this. But that's one paragraph out of 150 pages or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with a legendary guitar player named Ted Green who wrote he wrote what was it called? Oh gosh. It should just be right on the tip of my brain. Anyway, he was like a double Libra guy. He couldn't say yes without saying no. So this book later on he called it something like Frankenstein's Bible or something, but but it was especially for guitar players, it was one like very deep and everybody read it and everybody talked about it but it was funny that he later just thought, oh, that was like over the top.
Well, is he a West Coast guy?
Yes, LA.
That's why I don't know, because on the East Coast, the equivalent of that is Mick Goodrick,
Yeah, of course.
who laid down the deal and said,
Yeah.
voicing wise. In fact, he was the first to call me on the book. Out of the Clear Blue Sky book had been out about a month or two. He said, "Leaves fantastic, blah blah blah." I said, "But but I feel bad because I didn't write anything for guitar. And I know it's a whole thing with voicing. You got 4 fingers. You want to cut one finger off. You want to add a finger. It's a whole scene. I mean, guitar looks complex to me. I mean,
Yeah.
and Nick said, "Don't worry, you did it right. It's okay. We can do more than you think." And then I realized it's not the book. It's the person reading the book.
That's funny. Oh, chord chemistry. Thank you, Dan.
Oh, well, that's
That was what it was called, chord
right.
chemistry. Yeah. Michael Barsamanto says, "My man."
Had a good couple of years with him in San Francisco.
Yeah, yeah.
Him and Mark Isham.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mark Isham too. Yeah. Um, so you lived in San Francisco and before New York or after New York? Before New
Well,
York, right?
I'm from New York, so I was always
Yeah.
in New York. But when I went the first time to San Francisco, played a Keystone Corner with Elvin, I said I got to live here once in my life. It just was so charming and captivating, and looked so free and so colorful. The buildings there, each building had a different color. This is coming from a real New Yorker, you know. And uh, but then, as things progressed, um, about in the mid '70s, after Lookout Farm and after Elvin and after Miles, um, I started a fusion band with Pee Wee Ellis,
Ah,
Cold Sweat, Mother Popcorn, and like that. We had known each other. We had played a little bit, kind of R&B-ish with me going crazy and him playing blues. And I took it as a possibility to get out of New York. I had enough of it. You got to get out once in a while. At least in those days, And had a lot of attention on me. What are you going to do next? We could play, like
right. Can I take
So
a breath?
there I did my pilgrimage to San Francisco. Actually saw Toledo or Mill Valley. The
Uh-huh.
first Mill Valley exit had the houseboat there. I don't know now if it's there, but we lived in a houseboat. Pee Wee and his wife and kid and me,
Huh.
and we did this band called the Ellis Liebman Band,
Ah,
and the band had 6 good months. Spent about $100,000. Somehow I talked some LA guys into this deal, and it went. We did it. I had a single, sold 15,000. I don't know how, and that was it. No, that's not enough numbers, Dave. I said, okay, cool. So anyway, the so I decided to go back to New York, go back into what I had, loft, play all the time, and put a band together. And that band had Schofield in it, and
mm,
Hino, Adam Nussbaum, and Kenny Kirkland on occasion. So, but the West Coast, what happened, of course, after a year, is there's no grit there. It's too
clean.
clean.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, sensibility wise,
Yeah,
clean in the street would be nice for a change.
yeah,
New York would be we celebrate clean, but it's the audience wasn't there.
yeah,
They didn't need it. I mean, in New York, you kind of I don't want to get too heavy, but you kind of need it
yeah,
to get through and to communicate with people of your same. I mean, you got 20 saxophone players, not 2, blah blah blah. And I felt that this was a dead end. I worked 6 months with Eddie Henderson, Julian Priest. We worked 6 months, and then after that, I decided I had enough, and I went back. And I went back on a tour. I got a chick called me to do a world tour with him, and that was with string quartets and blah blah blah. And I did that, and then I went back to New York and called the next record, doing it again, because here I was back where I started 3-4 years ago or more. So that was the chronology. And then I my lady at that time had some property in Greenwich, Connecticut. So we hung there, to say the least. But it was a good time. But fusion had really an effect on it. It just made everything very busy. You were busy doing stuff. Not all worth it, of course, as usual, but a lot of activity. When I got back to New York in '78, '79, put this band together, a lot of shit was happening. It was like New York was from the music standpoint, jazz standpoint, it was happening. Seventh Avenue South, Vanguard, the normal suspects that are all gone now. But that was it. And then when I got married to Karis, we eventually found our way to the Poconos. So, long story, Pennsylvania, Stroudsburg. And we just moved back here about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Oh,
So we're back to New York where we started. We probably will end.
huh. Wow. Okay. And John Hewitt said, "Greetings from Sydney, Australia, Lieb."
Okay. Okay, mate.
And let's see. So jumping like really over a lot of life. What uh, were you sold on jazz from the beginning? What was your instrument? Sax from the beginning?
I loved rock and roll, 50s rock and roll. I loved Elvis. I had pictures of Elvis all. It was like I was like a girl. I had pictures of Elvis, plastered in the wall. And the saxophone, the tenor especially, was the soloing instrument of rock, really early rock, which was R&B in the end. And the tenor was the one, not even alto, tenor. So I wanted to play like that because I had my own top 25 every week. I made 25, and I traded with my friend. I gave him three Jerry Lee Lewis and two Little Richard. I still have the 45s. They're in my friend's house. Probably worth something. But um, my mother, very smart, she said, "You can take whatever instrument you want, but you got to do 2 years of piano." Wow. I said, "Oh, Ma, come on, really, Brahms, come on." She said, "You'll thank me someday." And she knew enough. I don't know how she knew music. I mean, she did play a little bit. So I did my requisite 2 years, played spinning song and the kid repertoire, minuet and G, blah blah blah. And I said, so I got 13 bar mitzvah the same time. I said, "I did what you asked. Now can I do what I want?" She said, "Yeah." We made a deal, and you came out. And eventually, that Christmas week, I found a tenor saxophone waiting for me in my room.
Oh,
So that was the story of that. And of course, you became active at a very, very big high school. I had a high school of 6,000 students. It's the biggest school in the world, Lafayette High School in Bensonhurst, New York.
mm,
Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
yeah.
And they had a very developed music program. They had a big band. They had an orchestra, 600 kids involved in music.
Wow.
So I was I didn't know what I was doing. I had studied with some neighborhood school people, and they taught us how to play club dates. So at 13 years old, I was already in the Catskills playing for the summer playing club dates.
Oh boy. Wow.
But the epiphany was, of course, I've spoken about this hundreds of times, was John Coltrane, and basically being able to sit 10 feet in front of him, basically because I could see him live. And the first night I saw him, it's a whole story, not necessarily here, but well, I said, whatever that is, I got to find out. This just changed my life because everything, I'm a teenager, I'm from Brooklyn. Life is a street, and you go home, you do your homework. And it's very straight ahead, very middle class. Everybody was cool, no problem. But this, and I saw it that first night, I could see it, and it's my favorite thing, by the way. One, of course, one of the tunes. And I said, "Holy shit! There's something behind the curtain here. What you see is not what you get." All those sayings that basically say, "Dig deeper. If you dig deeper, you'll get a gold mine."
Yeah.
And that was 15 years old, Birdland, with my girlfriend at the time, who in the middle of the concert, they stopped playing. She says, "That's from The Sound of Music." I said, "Oh, come on, Julie. They don't do shit like this. That's too hip. These guys are cool. They're going to play about some woman prancing around the Tyrolean mountains and, don't rate me. Come on." She said, "No, no, it's called My Favorite Things." I said, "Really?" And then, of course, they started, playing after 20 minutes, and it's still playing. And I'm like, my mouth, I can't believe what I'm seeing and hearing. And the implications, that of the honesty of that music at that night, I got it. I got it. This is no pretension. You don't even announce the guys' names. I mean, we are talking business, capital B. And I love that. It appeals to a certain part of my personality, which I like. There's no bullshit.
Yeah.
Just get, what do you want? What do you want to say? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And I saw that in that Coltrane, that was quintet with Eric Dolphin that weekend. And I could feel it, I could see it. And of course, it sounds funny, but I said, "Is that the same instrument I have home under my bed?" That's still called a saxophone, right? Those are the keys that I'm familiar with. I mean, this guy's playing it like, I mean, it's from another world, another planet, you know. So that started my musical, let's say, jazz. That's when I was 15 years old, and that's where it started.
Yeah. Did you go to school after that, or did you? I mean, school for music, or did you just
I
like
wanted to.
life school?
Well, I thought that I should, I was going to college. My parents, in those days, not everybody went to college. It wasn't like now.
Yeah. Yeah.
like the elites went to college, whatever.
Yeah.
So, my parents are both as principal and supervisors in the board of ed, teaching board of ed public schools. So
Yeah.
we grew up with, hearing about kids and the building and the principal and the assistant principal and so forth. That was the thing. So what was that? I'm sorry.
Um,
Garris, did you meet last night? Oh,
I'm gonna come in now.
okay.
Say hello.
I forget what I was saying. What was I saying?
you were taught. Well, you were taught. I asked if you went to college or
Oh, okay.
just
Well,
life.
got through high school, and then wanted to go to musical school and college. There were no jazz programs in New York. None.
Oh,
There was only
unbelievable!
North Texas, Miami, and Indiana.
Wow.
And maybe Berkeley, of course,
Yeah.
and maybe Northern Illinois or something like that. I knew I couldn't get a school to taught jazz.
Huh.
I'm taking lessons, but it's so I decided to go to Queens College. I knew I didn't want to leave New York. That much I knew. If you have any ideas you're going to do something, you got to stay in New York. Hello, Cathy.
Hello,
This is
how you
Cathy.
doing?
Hi. So nice to meet you.
This is Cathy.
Cathy.
Oh my God.
Cathy Segal.
Yes.
Go see
We're,
her.
we're friends online, but I've never seen you in person. So
Oh, nice to meet you.
yeah. So this is an interview, and are people listening now or later? Or?
They're listening now, and they can look at it later as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they're listening. Yeah, they have comments going on, on YouTube and Facebook.
Oh, okay. I see you have Mark Copeland coming up tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good.
I think this was all because of Mike Steffen, so.
Yeah, he organized it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Can I have a glass of water?
Yes, I'll get you a glass of water. Well, nice to meet you in person.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, I'll get you some water.
Thanks. So I decided, first of all, I'm going to stay in New York. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I'm going to go where there's a music program at least, and it was Queens College. They had an excellent classical department. So
Ah.
I go and I say, they give you a list, a 4-year listening list, required listening. It starts with Palestrina and ends with Stockhausen and something like that.
Wow.
I tried. I spent the first 6 months, thank you. The first 6 months staying in the music library, listening to Palestrina.
Wow, that was some commitment, man.
I mean, I tried. And then I decided this is not for me. Then I went to NYU in the middle of the first year, studied psychology. In those days, everybody was a psychologist or
Yeah.
English lit. This was the fallback degrees.
Yeah.
Didn't take much work. So at NYU, after that fallback from psychology, I have always loved and been pretty good at American history for some reason. I just loved it. So I decided to major in history.
Hmm.
Now, this is with me leading 2 lives by that time, going and playing, doing club dates. I had 3 tuxedos at 15 years old already. The gray one, the silver one, and a white one. And I was the announcer, Grandma and Moses coming up to dance the first dance. And club dates in those days were standards. It wasn't top 40.
No.
You heard only standards and mambo, merengues, cha-cha, tangos, paso doble. I mean, So, but I had to finish school. But the thing that happened there is that in between my junior and senior year, I went to Europe.
Uh-huh.
And my parents gave me $1,000 and a book called Europe on $5 a day. You might remember a guy named John Gunther. How you could negotiate this five US dollars a day, which you could if you stayed in the student hostel. If you ate here, you could eat off the street, but there you shouldn't eat off the street because and so I got through, basically got through the regimen of school and was leading 2 lives. And then when I graduated in '68, I said, look, I'm going to give this a shot. I don't even know what this means, but I know it's not playing club dates anymore. So I quit that whole thing, put the tuxedos in the fire, and decided to give this a chance and get a loft, because by then I know Bob Moses and I knew people that had lofts, and it looked like a great situation. You could play all the time. You had to stop a little bit in the daytime when they had lunch or something. So that started the next part of my life, which was New York as a young fledgling, naive, semi-talented saxophone player. So that takes me up to Elvin and Miles, and then my life starts in that respect. But the Coltrane at 15 years old, that was it.
Yeah.
That basically,
Um, Michael mentioned something. Maybe this was a turning point too. Dolphy on the Vanguard gig that night.
yes, he was. But see, Dolphy was much more under
Let down or
comprehend Dolphy because he had, he still played jazz rhythms. He just used crazy intervals.
yeah,
He still played ba 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 da ba ba da. Train was trilling and doing tremolos and playing the altissimo. I mean, I said, "Can this guy play?" It's the first thing before we went to this favorite thing story and everything that with this lady with Julie. It's the first thing was like, "Is that guy practicing or what?" And by the way, this is very funny. We got to the club before, as we entered, they have a placard, who's playing. It's John Coltrane Quintet and Bill Evans Trio, which I didn't listen to because I was with a lady. And Saturday night was the noisiest night of the year, so to say. And but what Mike's referring to is the quartet. When Train left Miles, he had Eric in the band for about 6 months, and I obviously caught that end of it. And that was amazing to hear those two guys together, different as they were.
yeah,
That even was made it even deeper. Because
yeah.
Eric played flute, which I played, clarinet, which I played, tenor, which I played. So there was even more at home than and without doubling instruments. So hearing Eric and Coltrane together, that was like a big plus.
I can just imagine how that must have felt to you. Just like so sensually and psychically electrifying and right, electrifying, right? Just you went into another zone.
Well, whatever it was that made me open to it. I
Yeah,
mean, a typical person's going to say it's noise. It's noise, and thank you. I'll have a beer and I'll go home.
yeah,
Somehow there was something in me that was more than just liked it. I needed it. I needed because I could see what's going down the road here. You're going to get a job. You're going to play you're going to work 9 to 5. I could see the whole scenario opening up. Not my parents weren't nothing they did wrong. They did worry about me when I started eating macrobiotic chicken. My mother said, "What is that weird bird on my plate?" I said, "It's chicken." She said, "What is that? Ain't no damn chicken. What are you talking about?" I said, "It's an organic chicken." Oh, it's an organic chicken. Made fun of me. I got into macrobiotics for a year in the middle of all this with Chick and Dave, and we didn't have Miles get a meal. He came. He sat in the loft. He sat in lotus position. It was great, and he ate. He didn't. I said rice and vegetables and tahini bread, and that's it. And timuti, disgusting. And uh, he said, "Nah, whatever you got, I'm gonna eat what you all eat."
That's great. Hey, I'm gonna go play something because you know because we can. And let's see. So many things. I did see something else. There's this footprints and this one live at jazz.
It's Mark. Yeah,
Is that cool?
yeah, that's good. That's Abercrombie and Copeland and Billy Hart,
Okay.
and who's on bass? Drew Gress.
Drew Grass is the person you've played with for a long time, right? The bass player.
I I have, yeah, not that much, but enough to really dig him.
Yeah.
He's got the best sound of everybody. His tone.
Well, well, I'm going to stop this because it goes on for a while. But yeah, Mark Copeland, who's going to be on tomorrow and is actually here on Facebook, he's going to. He is the pianist in that. John Abercrombie and Billy Hart and
And
Drew.
you know something? We are completely lost.
You were completely lost. Is that what you
At one
said?
point, yeah, I was for sure, and Mark was. He just didn't play, which was the smartest thing I could do. But oh no, I think this was the first time we played the tune or something. Was, I remember after the first one was not a keeper.
Oh,
What
interesting.
happens so there's a lesson here, which my boy I bring it up, which is, as we tell the students, same thing. Don't wave a red flag that you're lost, because you wave the red flag because you think you're going to correct it. Well, you ain't going to correct shit. You're just going to go down, making it worse. And what's the judicious thing to do? Stop playing. Oh God, how can a saxophone stop playing? Oh, I stop a lot, because I learned how to do that from Miles, and the need to create space. And of course, if you're lost, get out of out of the kitchen before it burns up. Come on, Dave, Jesus. We were lost on that tune. At least I was.
Well, I was gonna. That's funny because I was not knowing that. Of course, I was marveling, but I think you do that anyway. But I was marveling at the space that you were leaving. You know.
Depends on the tune, but yes, I do. I try to do that for a lot of reasons. For selfish reasons of taking a breath and feeling okay, and also mostly for the listener standpoint. Like give them a bone. And let them eat it instead of just grabbing it back.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as obvious with singers, but sometimes it is, especially with younger jazz singers, for instance, but who don't know about phrasing. But I just always say this covers a lot of ground. Too much of anything is boring. You could be the best ever, but if you do it, you're just gonna kill the
Well,
whole thing.
talking about Coltrane, I mean, he got a lot of flack for this very reasons.
Mm.
They said that John goes up one week on one scale and comes down the next week on the scale. And he got a lot of flack, and there was a big article in Downbeat where Coltrane answers the critics. I think Eric is on it, is in it too. And the guy says to him, "So, are you angry? Do you feel angry or anything?" I says, "Absolutely not. This is just this is what we're developing, and this is what it sounds like. I have no idea because I'm the one doing it, but I'm not angry at all." And then of course 2 years later, it's Love Supremes. I think that says enough right there.
Hey, I'm curious about intonation on the soprano. I mean, I've heard a lot over the years about how soprano is difficult to be in tune, and as a singer, I know that there's real subtleties in the intonation, and I tend to, if this is the note, I tend to kind of be more under than right on or above. And I work on that, at various times for various reasons. But I'm just curious about the intonation for the soprano.
It is the biggest challenge. That is the one that I stopped playing soprano in 1980 for 15 years.
Mm.
I mean, sorry, I stopped tenor and played
Oh,
soprano only for 15
oh,
years. And some burning shit and all that. That's a whole other story. But um, you're putting a lot of air into a very thin tube. Oh, it's right here. Can you see that? Let's see.
yeah.
It's very narrow. And your whole airstream, there's nowhere to go. There's only a few holes, and they don't even start till here. So this is like free love land. What do we do now, Dave? We got to learn how to deal with this. That's that's the number one thing. And the other thing is that these notes, we call it the left-hand notes, and then what we call the palm keys, are by nature an extension of what I said about intonation, but by nature are shrill because, again, more air is going in here before it's dispersed. It's going to get dispersed, and by the time you get to low B flat, it's just everything's closed. It's the horns acting the way it should. So those are two challenges, and I stopped and I decided to do soprano because I felt I had more originality on soprano, and I felt also just the way it looked and felt. I'm not that big, and it felt really good, and also I had a lot of miles that I was able to incorporate because of soprano and the trumpet similarities in the way the airstream works, and of course because of the size, similarities in attack, especially attack. I mean, Miles attack a note, the trumpet's like like that. Saxophone, when you do that, you go blap. It's a bigger blap. It's a because you got the tenor, you got all that air in you.
Yeah.
So it is a constant challenge, and there's definitely a stage where I'm out of tune quite a bit in the late '70s, maybe early '80s, until I did the sabbatical from the tenor, and by 2 years, by '82, '83, the soprano was, I could say it was in my pocket a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's a
What do you
definite
think?
challenge, and overtones are very important. I don't want to get into too technical, but playing the overtone series and matching the pitch of the real note with the pitch of the overtone note, uh, that's the kind of thing. So I had to deal with it. And again, there were not that many soprano players in the '80s. There was, Jane and Branford, maybe, I don't even know. And of course, the King, Steve Lacy, and Wayne. Coltrane was dead already 15 years. So there was room to be yourself and to find a style, which I gathered from different sources, But that was the pause was necessary for me to advance.
Yeah. Um, I've noticed, well, this is kind of a twofold thing. As a singer, one of my teachers once said to me, "Don't sing the melody, sing the harmony," and that struck me. And I could never kind of eke out like a real something that really he exactly meant by that. And I actually didn't want to because I had applied it already by noticing the space around me when I was singing instead of kind of down here singing the real melody, which I think brought me more in tune and freer. And it just reminded me too of Benny Maupin. I told you I've seen him a lot in LA, and how he really seems to take in the environment, the room that he's in, and encompass it in the intonation and the quality of tone, which I think is really cool.
I will also tell you something as a singer. I have an amazing respect that grew over the years for singers who don't press buttons, who have to find the pitch in the air. This is, we push a button and we can play fast. Of course, you can play fast when you have everything covered. Hello, come, Dave, hello. I mean, but singers, where did they get it from? It's like lying next to them on the piano. I don't know. Where's that melody going to come from? It's going to come from inside and from good intonation and voice quality and blah, 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 blah. I have a lot of respect for singers, because they get a bad rap. It depends on who it is, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
In general, just the overall idea of singing instead of pushing buttons is unbelievable. I think it's like really kind of transformative. It's like that could be another thing.
Yeah, it's interesting for me too. It's interesting to hear different singers. Like Jocelyn Medina had a 6-year anniversary of her jam session, and she had something like 30 singers singing a song each. And just listening to all the singers, and I mean, it doesn't really matter. I personally am opinionated about singers, but it doesn't. Who cares? It's just my
Opinionated
own
in,
feeling.
opinionated in what way?
Well, first and foremost, the no bullshit thing that you were talking about. You can really see on a singer if they're at all bullshitty, you know, and
Okay.
so
It breeds its
and
own problem.
it does.
And it's more so for women than men. We know why. It's obvious. And I know as soon as I see histrionics taking control, I'm turned off.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the best singer in the world. It just turns me off. But on the other hand, why not? Why shouldn't they? If they feel like move. It's a little bit of a dilemma.
I think it's never as obvious in any other instrument as the voice, as a singer, that you are being yourself or you're not, because and you're really saying what you think and feel, because you're using words and
I envy the use of words. I envy a songwriter, Joni, and Stevie Wonder. I mean, on our generation's the
yeah,
great, unbelievable pop musicians, and I envy them because they can say something and get a point across if you're listening. We can say, well, it sounds like clouds. Well, that's not quite enough, Dave, sounding like clouds. I want to see the clouds. Well, you ain't going to get that out of the saxophone, brother. Or voice is going to, you're going to have to imagine it there. It's
yeah.
And again, as soon as they start acting and showbiz out, it turns off a substantial part of the jazz audience, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
pop audience is a whole other thing. They get what they're expecting from the recording.
Yeah.
But the art world is very small, and singing in a club with the atmosphere being the only thing you got, it's a real challenge. I have a lot of respect for singers who do it right.
Yeah, this actually is a good segue into some of your teaching, which is how do you be yourself? I forget how I saw it on your.
Finding oneself.
Yeah. So could we just talk about that a little bit, your point of view of that?
I will talk, but I refer anybody interested in these kinds of things to go to the website. And this one is under educational articles, and it's called Finding Oneself. In other words, the dilemma is after years of copying everybody, and if you did it well, to all due respect, great. How do you escape what you made a deal in the beginning that you were going to play, you were going to transcribe solos. For what reason? Well, to learn what somebody else is doing. And, that's, so you did it. You did it. It's about a 5 to 10 year thing. What's left is you in the desert because you don't have your influences anymore. You refuse to play them. I would go to Schofield, he'd play some shit. I take the guitar out of his hands because you got to stop. And that's another thing about space. It leaves you a chance to find something that's maybe like we were talking before we went on about being bored. I mean, if you're bored, that's a good sign probably because it means something's going to come. So leaving a little space means maybe something will come. You transcribe yourself. You take 3 courses on the blues, play along, nothing fancy, and go through with a fine-tooth comb, and you find out how something happened that hadn't happened before on an F-sharp minor chord. Really, this is real analysis, real teaching yourself to learn, learning how to learn. It's very important. And if you look deep enough at the music on the paper, and then put it together with what you have by ear, by sound, you're bound to. I mean, it's like a contract with guarantee, but you're bound to find something different. It might be just the way you play a high D, maybe the way you leave the note, maybe the way you enter the note, maybe it's the portamento, maybe it's the slide, maybe it's being flat a little bit. Whatever it is, you have to be vigilant, and that's the place where most people fail because they've done their work. They sound good because they learn trains licks, and then they sound great, and all due respect because it takes a lot of time, but you have to give to get. And talking religious is redemption. I mean, if you got to give up something, and in this case, you got to give up what you love the most, playing that particular way. And if I catch it on one note and just say, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to take the horn out of my mouth. I'm going to do something. I'm going to go to the next table. I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to play my D that way again. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. But that's kind of the process. Transcribe yourself, analyze it with a fine-tooth comb, reproduce it, and really say to yourself, what is it? It's the way I phrase something. What is phrasing? Phrasing is like having lunch. What does phrasing mean? It's a word. It doesn't mean anything. It's maybe it's the sound that I got. Maybe I used a small half whole fingering. Then it's more grand. Oh, well, I played G7 flat 9. Now we're going to to the meta world. But that's the premise of the article, and the main thing is you got to really want it. I mean, I almost it sounds ridiculous, but I was so frustrated by Coltrane. At first, I loved him, and then after 10 years, by the time I'm in my mid-20s, I couldn't escape him. Him and Sonny Rollins were the 2 influences. My generation, it's tenor saxophone is those 2, just like it was Lester Young and Coleman Hawkins. The 2 wings of the same thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted so badly to sound like myself. I really, I had to try it. And Richie Byrack was very important in this. He was my close friend, and he put together this document that's in there about the several steps along the way. Taking one note, making it into 3 notes, some technical stuff, but also some, like, in the end, spiritual, because you really got to want it. You got to want it to. You got to want that they know who you are by 3 notes. I mean, that's the sign. Joe Henderson doesn't have to play more than 3 notes. Michael, Joe, me, of course I'm exaggerating. 3 notes. But by the time 8 bars are gone by, you know it's that guy.
Yeah.
How is that possible? Because when we speak, we know it's that. I know it's you now. Now, if you were in, in the neighborhood, you were around, I go, Cathy, how you doing? You get on the phone, I'd say, oh, how you doing? What's happening?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because your voice gives you away, gives us away, and for better or worse. And sometimes we use the voice to do, to say things that we don't mean, but the voice is at the control of the brain. So, just like we have different voices and different fingerprints, we have different sounds. And the job is, how do you get your sound from that instrument out in the world for somebody to say, hey, I know who that is, man. That's Dan Blake or whatever. So that's part of the deal.
Yeah. That's great. I I like how you're describing what's in my head. Thank you. That's why I love these conversations, man. It's like, oh yeah, I know, right.
A lot. How many have you done?
You are number. Let's see, what are you? Something like number 262.
What are you going to do with all these? Are they all electronic, computer?
Yes, they're all archived. I have a Dropbox archive that people can go to. I don't know. The one thing I want to do, I never intended to make money from them. And although people have said, oh, you ought to monetize them, I didn't, that wasn't my intention. And it feels a little weird to kind of go after that, or it just doesn't feel like what I want. But what I do imagine is actually taking time and listening to each one and writing down comments that make me go, oh, and then, have a book like Dave Liebman. Here's like 30 comments that Dave Liebman said that impressed upon me, So I could do that.
I have my book of sayings somewhere. That's,
Hey, of your sayings?
no, of things. Other people.
Pat Martino somebody wrote down Pat Martino's sayings. They were cool. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't. I don't see where it is, but it's. I started in the '60s and it's still going.
Oh,
My writing was like much clearer.
really?
Let me just see,
Wow.
because I could read you something from there and it would be apropos.
I'm impressed.
Where is it? Oh, just cleaned this today and now it's too.
See, that's why you should never clean.
I know. That's I've heard that before. Oh, I don't know where it is. Shit.
Mark, I think Lieb is loud enough, but you might want to turn up your computer. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Sidebar.
Mike Steffen said Train had a curved soprano that he ultimately passed on to Benny Maupin, saying that he had problems playing it in tune.
I wouldn't. I don't know that. No. I know that Benny was, had no Train. I can't find it. Okay. Yeah. So you have. That's an archive of. I mean, that's the biggest one. The Yale University has one, but not just jazz. It's Stravinsky and all that stuff.
Yeah.
200. So you're going to keep going. You have 3, 4, 5. You could be up to in a year or two 500.
I know.
Good for
Well,
you.
let's see. Judy Carmichael, the stride player, she has, like 20 years of doing her NPR series.
There it is. Sorry.
Hey, he found it. Ooh, I can't wait.
We are reorganizing this room, and I'm still. Hold on, baby.
Oh, Joyce is here, and I think she would like an explanation of what you said, more so for women. I think he didn't say
The show business.
be bullshitty. I think he said to see women. No, it was easier to see women bullshitty than to see men. I think that's what you meant. That's what I.
Well, I don't want to get. Certainly don't want to get involved with feministic.
Yeah, yeah.
and so forth. But a woman is, people look at women as physical objects. Somewhere along the line. I mean, you might say that man's cute. He's got nice hair, good build, something like that. But with women, there's a lot more.
Yeah.
And, if you're on stage, you're inevitably going to use it, or maybe you're not going to use it. I mean, Sarah Vaughan didn't move anything, right? I mean, Carmen McRae, who was my favorite, I didn't never saw her sing, but did she move? I mean,
No,
the,
I mean
well,
she moved like a singer. She
like I
that's
said,
all, you know.
exactly. So this is from the '60s. Can you see that?
A little higher. Oh yeah. Okay, so this is when you started writing in this?
Yes. And this is
Cool.
everything from Freud and Clark Terry. You have to have a way of explaining to the kids what you want of them. If you'll explain it to them, they'll try it, and most of them will do it. They break their buns trying to do what you teach them if you know how to teach them. But if you embarrass them, they may quit right there. Clark Terry. To be a Jew. This is good. I don't know with a question mark. To be a Jew is to stand up to adversity and to practice self-mastery and to keep on treading your ancient path. That is the whole Torah on one leg, self-mastery, and also to understand very well why life has buffeted you and to learn a lesson from it, and to always improve your ways, and also to accept the just decrees of fate. Just decrees.
Boy, that's good.
It's so poetic.
Who said that? I'm sorry.
This is a question mark, so that means I don't know whose it is.
Oh, oh,
Here's one
that's
on redemption. We just did the redemption one. That's too long. I mean, there's a lot of Picasso's here. Success, Picasso. Success is dangerous. One begins to copy oneself, and to copy oneself is more dangerous than to copy others. It leads to sterility. To make oneself hated is more difficult than to make oneself loved. On the other hand, where is it written that success must always go to those who flatter the public taste? We're starting to talk about moving around a little here. For myself, I wanted to prove that success can be obtained without compromise, even in opposition to all of the prevailing doctrines. It is the success of my youth that has become my protective wall. The blue period, is Picasso. The rose period, they were the screen that sheltered me. Then he says here, art is not the application of a canon of beauty, but what the instinct and the brain can conceive beyond any canon.
Hmm.
And, I mean, also my writing. I mean, I can't draw a straight line now. I can't believe it's the same. I mean, it doesn't look like the same person. And this is, I keep this around. It's some Chinese shit. I keep it around to read to the kids.
Yeah.
At the end of the lesson, let's go there for a minute. Let's get into the other world for a second, guys and girls. So if I take this with me, that's all I need.
Wow. That's cool. I'm just seeing it where I can find Pat Martino, but because I'll probably just send it.
He came back from the dead.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I was a big.
It's
I
amazing.
told you I was a guitar player fan, and so yeah. Oh yeah, here it is. Pat Martino aphorisms, like for instance, let's see. Honesty, integrity, love, and desire are the ingredients of powerful music. Yeah, these are very short. They're like one little sentence. Music is a gesture that can embody all qualities.
Yeah, all true. All true.
Don't tie down to any technique or school of thought. Be open. Stuff. It's just his basic stuff. But yeah, I'll have to send that to you. Maybe you'll find something. So that's cool. That's really nice. I have many books, but not. I mean, that is a very specific thing that you did for years.
Well, you just said you write down what you.
Well, I'm going to. This is what I'm actually finishing a booklet, like you said before. You wrote a booklet that I've been creating for 15 years, and I just finally, this year, having time on my hands, I just said, Cathy, come on, you got to finish this. And it's my observations of how one concept can literally be effective in the same way in voice technique, in life, and in jazz. For instance, communication, that you need to communicate, like flow out. And that voice technique, that is a huge fixer. When you start thinking like that, the voice actually comes out and surpasses the problems that you might have. And of course, it's great in life, right? Communicating is better than not communicating. And in jazz, same idea. You want to that flow, that outflow, of communication. So things like that.
Beautiful. Very well. Good luck with it.
Thank you. So I want to finish that book, and then I'm going to start listening again. It's kind of daunting to me. Like, okay, let's listen for 2 hours,
No, it's a
and
lot.
and write down stuff.
2 hours is a lot. I said, she's 2 hours. How's she going to do that? 2 hours is a lot.
Let's see. I had a question a little ways ago. And you're such a big educator. You're so into the education scene, which is great. From Taylor, there's been so much transformation in jazz education within curriculums in colleges. What should be emphasized more or less in college jazz programs?
Well, we hope that they know their instrument by then, because that's a big thing. It used to be, you got a lot of wannabes, and they wouldn't know
Yeah,
their instrument. But now, because I basically put it because of the internet, you can hear in your bedroom, you can hear Coltrane in your bedroom on your pajamas.
yeah,
That has made a difference in the world as far as education goes, and amassing education. I mean, doing it and being one who gets done too. Um, but basically, number one, it should be ear training, and that's something that singers know very well. And my
yeah.
wife she teaches ear training. She does the whole Berkeley course, and that's definitely essential. And my pet peeve is the eighth note feel. I mean, can't get away with it. Dave got away with it.
Oh,
You try to
oh,
cheat.
yeah, man. I know, man. That's your
You're gonna cheat. The reed's dry. It ain't gonna play. It's dry in this room.
those
No,
reeds.
I can get away with it, but she'll know, and then I better not do it. Let's see. Completely anti-jazz.
Yeah,
That little difference in the main currency of our music, which is eighth notes. Triplets are compounded from eighth notes. That feel of being able to swing with the dotted eighth and 16th, smooth articulation, is the secret of this music. Period. You can do that, you can play anything you want. Now, not all music demands it. The free jazz, you wouldn't play that way. Dixieland, you wouldn't play that way. But I'm talking about basically the middle of the century in jazz and what it was about. Coltrane, Miles, Sonny Rollins, Bill Evans, whatever. And getting them to have good eighth notes. The only way I know how to do it is transcribing and playing it, singing exactly back with the tape, then analyzing the tape, putting it in another key, taking lines, put all the 2/5s in one page. I just had it yesterday. He's in LA actually, Fazine Fahadi. He's the Iranian cat who wants jazz, amazing. And he sang, he did All the Things You Are. And but it was his All the Things You Are. I said, you know what? He said, take Boston Bernie, Dexter's thing on All the Things You Are, and learn that. And then he called me from wherever he was. He said, I got it. I took it already. I'm going to learn it. Studious. The eighth note feel, if you're going to play this music, is essential. Some people call it the triplet feel. We mean the same thing. Basically, there's a little difference between 3 and 2, but not really.
yeah,
The ability to do that makes you sound like you're playing jazz.
yeah,
Without that, it's stiff and doesn't swing. So I insist on transcribing. I have a whole rap on it. It's about a year to 2 year study. Probably nothing else will happen in the 2 years because you're going to have to do a lot of work. But that's the only way I know how. You're not born with good eighth notes. Nobody comes out of the womb with eighth notes and swinging. It's just not heard of. So how it's like, hey, you don't know how to walk across the street until you follow your father and do it. You don't know how to hold a fork until somebody does it. Well, you don't know eighth notes until you copy them eighth notes from somebody who knows how to do it. You want good eighth notes? Hank Mobley, Dexter Gordon, Sonny Stitt. I mean, saxophone players, of course. Wynton Kelly is at the top of the line as far as swinging. So there's plenty of precedent. You don't complain that there's not enough material. There's plenty there. And also, it's disappearing because guys aren't playing jazz now anymore. So now it's becoming a little bit like Baroque music. I don't know. It's going into that museum mode. This little disease we just had might. I hope it's not the death knell of this music, because there's nowhere to play this music.
Yeah.
Whatever, that's another story.
Yeah.
But that's the responsibility of the school to answer lady whoever's question it was, is to get the basics done in the first 2 years, and then build individuality. Talking 4 years.
Yeah. That's good.
And I didn't have that. I mean, and I tell you, I have holes in my education. I can't do big band writing. I tried; it was a failure. Uh, I'm not a big doubler. Like I can name about 5 or 6 things in music that I can't do. Playing really believable funk. I can play blues, but like Michael used to play, I can't do that. So, but that leads you to this, which is you can't do everything.
Yeah.
At what point do you finally outlaw what you don't need, what you don't aren't? Sonny Rollins got asked this question. Sonny, if you know his repertoire in the '50s, was very kind of chic of Araby. Best things in life are free.
Yeah.
No business like show business. Talk about Showtime. Ethel Merman opening up on another title. So Sonny gets asked this question, which is, Mr. Rollins, how come you choose to play a repertoire that's not known for its depth? They like cover tunes. This is not All the Things You Are, which is a deep tune. Stella by Starlight, that's a deep tune. Lush Life, deep tune. But Chic of Araby, I don't think it's a deep tune. So the guy asks him this question, and then he looks at him straight in the eye, Sonny, and he says, because I can. And nobody could take a song like in the Chic of Araby and make it happen except Sonny Rollins. Coltrane was not his temperament, but Sonny had that sense of humor, a little bit of parody. He could kind of flit in and out. He was very capricious, he wasn't like trained, what you see is what you get. And Sonny was more around the stage, walking around. But, it's just a whole different personality.
Yeah.
So the important part of what we're talking about is deciding at some point, usually outside of school, I call it from school to the stage, the process of what you do after you've been in school. Because now everybody's in school. Everybody goes through school now. Used to be you asked who you were playing with. Now you ask what school you go to.
Yeah.
And you have to decide at some point to give up what you don't do. And what should you be doing? The one that you're the best at. And if you're the best at it, you're probably really happy with it, and it's a good direction. I'm not going to play 5 idioms and be good at them. It's impossible to be a master of them. To have a taste, it's okay. But not to be a master, you got to really give up. Again, I said earlier, what you love the most, you got to give up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always going through that, I think. Just still at 67, and I've been singing since I was 5,
Yeah.
What it seems like you do something. I think you mentioned kind of this idea, but you do something for a long time, and then you decide not to do it,
Right.
and then you look back and you see that it was a box that you were in. And how could you not know while you were doing it that you were in this box? But you didn't. You just were there and doing your thing. And I'm fascinated by that. And again, it's similar like in music and life and vocal technique.
It's being
It's all that.
blindsided. It's that's what it is. Blindsided.
Yeah.
Could be out of emotion, out of need to emote,
Hmm.
out of like some head games you might be playing, or you didn't realize you were in the box really, as you're describing. You just realized it after. 10 years later, you go like, God, what was I doing? But then you got to give yourself some freedom and some allowance for change and for adaptability and for lasting, so that you could even judge 10 years ago. I mean, you're lucky you could even get up in the morning, and let alone like worry about that.
Yeah.
Worry about, like, I was in a box. What box? You had it. Goddamn happy you're in a damn box.
Yeah.
Because through that box you learn what not to do maybe.
Yeah.
That's just as valid as what to do.
I did something really interesting in college. I was at Berkeley. I was trying to think of the head guy, the sax player who wrote the programs.
Larry Karras.
Not Larry.
Larry Monroe.
No, no, he was a sax player, and we actually called the swinging eighth notes his name. I don't know why they did that, but they did anyway. But what I did, I thought this was pretty cool. What I did, I took tapes. In those days, we had tapes, and I recorded every single song from every genre that I adored, whatever it was. And maybe it was 8 bars of something, or maybe it was the whole song. And then I listened and I wrote down exactly what I liked about each piece. And by the time I was through, I had an idea of what I liked
Well,
in
you did
music.
research. That's
Yeah.
because you did research.
Hmm.
And a lot of this game is research. It's practicing, but it's researching what you should practice. So really, research is the overall umbrella term for development. Research. Then after research, applicable, and being accl-
Acclimated or,
yeah, acclimated to a certain aspect of what you were in the box for,
yeah.
and then hitting that nail on the head 100 times. That's the thing. Stick with it. Stick with it. Jamie Haddad, a drummer who was in my favorite things version, he used to say, "You got to own the groove. Own the drummer." He says you can't, it can't be any less than that, and it will be found if to be lesser. You got to own the groove, and that's just those few words. Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Um, what Mike Steffens said, Dizzy Gillespie said, it's taken me all my life to learn what not to play. Yeah.
Right. Dizzy,
Um,
Dizzy in that book also says, "I can count on one hand when it really happened." It meaning the music when everything came together. That's something that
yeah.
we know about.
Yeah. Um, should we play? Uh, oh, I was gonna say. Well, we heard the live, or did we? Did we hear the live version of My Favorite Things, or did you say
Yeah.
you had recorded that? Or
Yes, we did. Thank
oh, like I said before, there's so much. Um, oh, look, you're right next to Taziji.
you. Ah,
I, yesterday, I my guests had an emergency and they didn't show up, so I just came on and I played videos and asked the audience for videos that they liked. It was great.
nice.
Now here's another one.
That's the same one.
It is. Oh
It's
yes, it is.
the same gig.
Uh,
I can tell you a story about this. And Elvin, you just passed Elvin. Go back to Elvin.
Elvin.
And,
This one.
yeah, my daddy. Look at that. Look at that, brother. Damn. Smiling away. Eyes closed. Cigarette. Okay, here's the story. So, let me talk.
Say what?
Yeah, let me talk. So I want you to hear this story. This is a great story.
Okay, okay.
It has to do with Elvin and my favorite things. That's apropos.
Was that you, by the way?
No, that was Pat LaBarba.
Oh, okay. I thought, okay, well, he could have had all that hair.
Just in a suit. That's not me. I don't know how anybody can play in a suit. The whole must is weird. I can't believe you can feel so constrained. I don't know. But Miles and Elvin, Train. I mean, Miles wearing beautiful, looked great. And Train, man, it was like tuxedo and shit. I mean, the bow tie, playing all that stuff. It's unbelievable. I can't even imagine it. Well, anyway, so Elvin, I had, as we've talked about, I had a 2 year stint with him in the '70s, and then when it came to the '80s, there was a booking agent who liked me and Elvin, and he wanted to put us together, and he created a
Wow.
tour, 2 or 3 tours with John Francois Jenny Clark and Alex Real and whatever, blah 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 blah. So we're on the train and seated against facing each other, as you know, with the trains in Europe, and we had a little Chianti, a little cheese, and we're feeling no pain. So I figured this is a good opportunity, and I'm really curious. Did they? Because every night I heard Coltrane, they did play my favorite things, but that's 15, 20 nights. We're talking. So as he said, I said, Elvin, I got to ask you this question. I hope you don't mind. How many times did you play my favorite things? Backs up now. It's a trainer, so he's really close to me, like where you are in real. And he leans over and he says, "Well, we worked 45 weeks a year." And, then his way of talking. He goes, and we played it every night. Sometimes we played it twice a night. He says, "You tell me how many times." And then he sits back in that big grin with those white teeth and that black face. And I said, I did a quick calculation. I said, 1,500. 6 years, 300 times, whatever. I don't know, 1,500. He said, now he gets right in my face. Up and it means in your face. I mean, he's like, he goes, well, Lee, let me tell you something. I don't know how many goddamn times we played it, but we played it every night like we wouldn't be around tomorrow. He looked at me like, you know what I'm talking about? A little edge. Like I dared get into the voodoo for him for 1 second, into the weeds, you know. I said, I got it, sir. He said, never forget that. Those are my favorite things.
And you never have
They did play
forgotten
it
that.
every night. They played it every night. And he changed it. That's the other thing. I mean, the tune is E major, E minor. For God's sakes, what the hell is there? It's in 3/4. That's it. That's the whole song. It over the 6 years he played it. He changed it. He changed. He didn't change the tempo. Didn't change the chords or the melody. But he left a lot for McCoy to do. And he made that song like live in a 6 year, 7 year period. I mean, people would so normally say, "Oh, it's my hit tune. Okay, we play it once a night." And blah blah blah. His hit tune, which was my favorite things, that put him on the map as a after Miles. His playing that, my favorite things, was known. He was known for that. You know, people would clap. When they're starting the song, like they do a pop concert. So anyway, I thought that was a great story, and I loved Elvin. Elvin was the most human person I've ever known, besides my father. Elvin was like, he was just, he was like a king, emperor of an African country. He was. And he was decent to everybody. And he could be out too, man. If you had that third rum, you gotta watch out. Two was cool, but if you did that third one, you knew he was gonna look at you. He was gonna say, "Who are you?" I just spent like 70 minutes playing with you. He said, "I don't know who the goddamn you are." Okay, I'm going down to the end of the bar. He said, "Well, you better get the hell out of here." Like a whole personality change. Nothing wrong.
My first husband was like that, but not too much. Once he stepped over the line, he never actually did that again. Yeah, I did a New Year's Eve gig in Laguna, and he came with me, and he just stepped over the line. And on the way home, he was yelling at the people on the street out of the car window. And then there was this long drive to the freeway on kind of fields. And I mean there was the road there, but on both sides were just empty fields. And he said stop here, and I thought, oh, he has to get out and pee or whatever. And he started just wandering off. So in my high heels and my gown, I ran after him, and he was a big guy too, real, and I dragged him back. Yeah, and then on the way home on the freeway, he did ask me to pull over, and he had to. After that, he was cool. He went, oh, yeah, I don't want to do that again.
Sometimes it's like different cultures, like the Finnish, they drink and they get into they don't like the Elvin, they don't recognize you. Whereas
Yeah,
the Japanese drink and they just laugh more. They just laugh.
yeah,
It appears that they're having a great time. And this is people with this hard liquor, this is vodka, not aperitif.
yeah.
The real deal. I remember first times in Helsinki, one of the first times, I was standing on the street with a saxophone player, and this guy was kind of creeping around, like kind of in everybody's face. And I noticed it, and I looked at Arrow, and I said, "What's that?" He says, "Don't move. You make like you're dead. Don't move." And the guy came up to me with it in his face, in my face. It's like a little bit, Finnish was bad enough, let alone having to be drunk. So, and I said, "Oh, okay." And then I bring another story, similar story. We're doing a record date at Rudy Van Gelder's. I forget which record it was. Maybe Genesis, Merry-Go-Round, I don't know. Thad is on the date. Thad's going to play a tune. So they come in, Thad comes in, and everybody kowtows down. Jones like, coming, Elvin's like, this is my older brother. Because Elvin had 9 brothers, and he was the youngest.
Wow, yeah,
So,
9.
like,
Yeah.
this is my brother Thad, and he's going to play on one of your tunes. You get something for him? I said, I got a tune, I got an arrangement for soprano, tenor, whatever. So I don't know, time passes, half hour, 45 minutes. Suddenly, we're seated at the microphone, the horns. It's Joe Farrell, me, Frank Forster, maybe Grossman, I forget. We're seated there. And Elvin is like talking to Joe Farrell. He ain't talking. He's like in his face screaming. You took my brother's vodka. Look at the case. And he opens the trumpet case, and there's nothing there. He He said, "What'd you do with my brother's vodka?" And all I know is I look at Joe, stoned, his face straight, no emotion. And then Elvin came to me. I said, "I better do what he did." And that was it. Then we do the tune, which is my tune, a waltz. And there's an F sharp minor chord in the bridge, separating it from all the C major waltzes. That'd be bullshit. And you gotta have that F sharp, otherwise you're screwed. And he plays an F natural, loud as could be, could hear it across the ocean. That, the trumpet. So I go in the booth with Gene Perola. I go, "What are we gonna do about that?" He says, "It ain't gonna be on the record because we ain't doing no more. We're finished." I said, "Gene, I worked so hard on this chart. I mean, I never could write for three horns until this was the first time I ever tried it." He said, "They're crazy in there. Get out while you can." So that's what taking too much booze is about.
Oh God. Well, what was your first record? Do you remember?
Open Sky. Well, in '67, in my journey to Europe,
Yeah.
that first one was with these Swedish cats. Free thing, kind of like a Mingus thing. But the first record I could call my own was Open Sky Trio with Frank Tusa on bass and Bob Moses on drums, and that's 1970. That's the first one. First official one. Not true. The Swedish one was really first, '67, but the first American one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what else did I want to ask you? Well, bye, Mark Copeland. See you tomorrow. He said, as always, my friend Dave is intelligent, thoughtful, loose, and funny. A hard act to follow.
He's very quiet. You know him. You know Mark.
I've met Mark, and also I found him. I was on a gig in the ABC Islands, and I was wandering around one of the islands, and I found a little record store, and I saw one of his records, a CD with Dieter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely fell in love with Mark's playing, and then just up to now, and I
He's very true to himself in the sense that his personality and his music are absolutely spot on. I mean, the way he plays is the way he is as a person. He's one of the most accurate. You often you see that, and you often don't see it. But in this case, as you hear, well, his records. And I like playing with him. He brings out another side of me. With Byrak, it's a little more powerful, but with Mark, it's I can dance a little bit. I mean, some guys you got to pull through, but I can dance a little bit and be playful a little. Nothing wrong with being happy for one bar.
what is your desire for players who you play with? Like, what's one of the biggest, maybe one of the highest, choices that you have that they
Well,
play
it depends on the instrument because what I need from drums is not, it's not piano language, but I need a drummer who has a green light and is not afraid to having a green light. Does not get uptight because it's a green light too long. You dive in, you do your job. If it's too much, I will tell you.
Yeah.
If it's too little, I can't tell you. If it's too little, I can't tell you to do more because it's your personality we're talking about. But I can tell you to do less. Hey, could you tone that down a little bit when we get to the bridge? You know what I mean? Like that. Piano player, of course, obviously voicings and, ability to know when to duck out because that strolling thing is not a bad idea. Monk made it a habit. But, there's something to be said. We've been talking about leaving space. And the strolling thing can be good. If the piano player does that and you have just bass drums and horn, that's really suitable for a while. Then when the piano comes back in, it's powerful. And then I like another horn. I like trumpet or another saxophone. I just enjoy it. And I remember Pete LaRocca, who was my first big influence. I said, he had three horn, he had trumpet, tenor, and soprano, something like that. And it was kind of, the personnel he picked was a little bit weird. I said, Pete, why do you have these guys? It's New York City. We have that choice of everybody. He said, they make me play different. He says, you play one way. He says, but the next guy plays another way. And I need the difference from what I do. And I'm the leader of the band, by the way.
Yeah. I remember my first husband, I was kind of young, putting bands together, I guess. And I was a little worried. And he just said, don't worry about the style of music the style that they're playing in. He said, worry about their personalities if they get along.
And in the final analysis, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I mean, a quiet guy doesn't necessarily play quiet, but probably he does. Does a little bit. I remember as a teenager when I would go with my friend, we couldn't stop talking about, does he beat his wife? What does he drink? What does he drink in the morning? Is he a nice guy? You know, the second question you get now is always the same one. What school did you go to? Berkeley. No. Hearing somebody play. How did he play? He was good. I said, oh, what was my point? I forgot my point.
Oh well, COVID.
No. The first question is how does he play? Can he play? Three words.
Oh, can he play?
Can he play? And then the next one is what's he like? He's cool. Done. That's in 5 words. You got the personality and the music in one. Because these days we don't have that. I played with Horace last week. If you want to hear me play like that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know. So now the question again is like, you know, who you are as a person with can you play? Because if you say can you play and you go no, then the guy's out the door. You know,
Yeah.
It's kind of like a way of checking things in and out. Could be a little cold, but that's the way it goes.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be done, right?
Gotta be done. I mean, I had my experiences sitting in and being embarrassed. I mean, you know, like not being ready. And I went up there. Anyway. This is a great story also. Bob Moses was playing with Russ Hahn, Roland Kirk. And they were playing the Showboat in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So Moses, and I'm 18, so I can drive. He says, come down and sit in. I said, oh, shit, sit in. Come. So I take the tenor, go and walk in the club Saturday night at a black club. Forget about it. It's like party time, hats and gowns. I mean, dressed to the nines. People laughing and screaming. What a great atmosphere, you know. I go to the back, and they're sitting there. He doesn't say hello to me. Nobody introduces me. Now he's blind, so he doesn't. You know, all he knows is somebody's going to come on stage. I guess I don't know what he knew. But when they went to the stage, Moses said, "Come on." You know, I was a little reticent. He said, "No, come on." So I go up there. Now the whole club is getting quiet because Hassan didn't take any prisoners either. You know, he was tough. He was tough on his audiences. He was really tough on his audiences. You know, white, black, yellow, red. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I'm there with the tenor. He turns, you know, he's in front, and he turns around and he says, all the things you are. Your first note's F natural. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello. If I ever had an out-of-body experience, it was that next 32 bars. Because believe me, after that, I stopped. Stopped what? I didn't have any idea what he was talking about. I didn't know all the things you are. I certainly didn't do it in E, if that's even the key. I couldn't keep the tempo up, even if I knew the damn tune. So now I got to play though. He went like this. He went, whoa, you know, because he was blind. He uses his body to tell you what to do. You know? And then the whole club is going. You know, they're like, I am so embarrassed. It was beyond embarrassment. I couldn't face anybody or myself. So I did one course and then I snuck to the back of the stage. Now I didn't leave though. I wasn't going to walk down in the middle of the set, walk out of it,
Yeah.
especially since I walked screwed up on steps in the first place.
Yeah.
So he said, now the next song he says, you know September song? It happened to be. That was one of the club date tunes that I knew, at least the melody. I didn't know anything about the chords, but I was able I said I got through at least 2 A choruses. The bridge I left alone, which was cool. Then I did the last A, and now I felt like I could leave the stage. Now that is if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. That's one of those stories. And
Oh
now
boy.
people are much nicer now. Musicians are nice, and maybe they went through it themselves. But you know, you don't see that often. But that generation, I mean, if
Yeah, that was a tough generation for
you
that.
know, tough, Sonny Stitt, kill you, you know. But then love you, but tough love.
But yeah,
You had to get through. You had to get through the beginning. You know, like go get me a beer, get me a cigarette, go get me some stash, and like that. And you do that 3, 4 nights. If the guy says, "You look like you've been here before," yeah, I have been. What do you play? Saxophone. Oh yeah, what do you like to play? Blah, blah, and suddenly a relationship is born. I had that with Charles Lloyd. I went up to Charles Lloyd. I was 20 years old. He sounded the most like Old Train. I said, I'm going to the guy who sounds the most like Old Train. I didn't even know who Charles was. I go up to him at the bar in the break. He's playing Cantabile. They're playing Fiddler on the Roof, that stage, 64, 65. And I said, Mr. Lloyd, I loved it, enjoyed it very much. I said, do you teach? He said, then he looked, and then he did one of these with the glasses, that's when you get serious, Put his on his nose. He comes up in my face. He says, but you can come over tomorrow. He said, you know where I live? I said, I do. He lived across from the Blue Note. I
Oh,
said, yes, I do. He said, 1 o'clock and don't be late. And we had a relationship for a year. I saw
oh,
him every Sunday, him and his wife. I took them places. I
oh,
drove
wow.
Keith. I drove Keith and Jack and Cecil McBee to Newport for him. I became his gopher, which was
Wow.
glad to be. Yeah. So
Wow.
you gotta watch out when you're going for a jam session, though. Okay, now the guys are nice. They don't try to cut you like do E and hit that tempo.
Right. I dated a sax player for a while. He was he from Dallas, I think? And he was, he said, when he was just starting out and he went to a jam session and he knew whatever song it was in the key of B flat, and they didn't tell him that they were choosing a different key, and just to fuck him up,
Yeah, that's the
and
way it
at a
was.
fast tempo, and there he was, in the middle of something he didn't know.
That's the way it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I wouldn't do that because I'm a teacher and I have to be, respectful of my students. But I can see the use of that in certain circumstances. I'm like, I think you've had enough, son.
right. I got a lot of help from older musicians. I mean, my dad was a sax player, so
Oh,
I went to his gigs and rehearsals and stuff. And
great.
and then but then I was always attracted to the older people in the music because it just felt good. It felt calm and real. So I got a lot of lessons from older
My
musicians.
father's a musician. That's right there. So he was a jazz. He played jazz.
Yeah, but he was kind of the down the middle of the line. He was in Boston. We were in Boston, and he
Uh-huh.
led big bands, and
Oh,
he
wow.
was he
Oh, you came
sang
up in a real
Kenton kind of
environment.
stuff, huh?
You came up in a real jazz environment.
Yeah, yeah. And my mother used to be a singer, and I had twin sisters 4 years older than me who sang great, and one played piano. So we all,
Oh,
came up singing. That's how I learned the repertoire, and you know,
that's lovely.
yeah. And I played flute. Look, I even have taken a lesson recently.
Oh, not an easy instrument. I
I,
did play it for a while, and then I said, if I'm not going to be good on it, I ain't doing it. That demands practice every day. You got to get good
yeah,
at it. Every day
I
you got
know.
to feel that metal on your lip, man.
I really want to actually play the alto flute, and somebody said that they would loan me an alto to see if how I liked it. You
I
know.
played alto flute with Miles, and he said he came. He said, he said, nobody ever played flute with me.
Oh,
He said, but here's a funny story. The alto flute's an F or a G or some weird key.
yeah, G, I think, yeah.
Okay. So he says, he says, how come you don't play the shit you play on the flute on the saxophone? Which was true. I said, because I don't know what key I'm in. He said, me neither. He was very cool and very nice. He was nice to me. But the alto flute, the thing with that is projection. You got to get everybody to soften down. I mean, I did play the third octave, but that wasn't the right thing to do. I mean, if you're going to play a third octave, get a damn regular flute. But the alto flute for down, lower, bottom is beautiful. For recording, perfect. Great in recording. There's no competition.
Yeah. I,
Audio.
I want to try it out. I've always wanted to play it, and I just never went there. I played flute at Berkeley because they didn't have vocals at the time. But
You're,
you know,
you're experienced.
you have a friend, Daryl Winesman. Good to see Lieb again, open, honest, and willing to share his thoughts on any time on any subject. He's one of my best teachers from way back in 1981 at the Abersol Clinic in California.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming down.
Do you are you familiar? Did you ever play at the festival Guimarães Jazz in South America? I was just
Oh,
curious.
no, not South America. Only Brazil and Uruguay. So.
Okay, yeah. What country is one of your favorites?
Italy, as mad as it is there, crazy as it is, they enjoy life. And
Yeah,
they can have a pandemic or whatever they call it. They will find a way to have wine and cheese. I mean, the lifestyle is just, I mean, it's completely disorganized. It's crazy there. But I
The
love
time thing is really weird. The gig's at 8 and you don't
9 o'clock
start till
again.
11 or something. Yeah.
And you don't look at the promoter and saying, do we have to go?" He says, "No, they're just going to take their seat soon." Implying that on the other hand, we better play the full 2 hours. We have to leave at 6 in the morning. The usual,
And the great food. The food is so amazing there. Oh my God.
And then just out of if I was, not doing what I was doing, southern France is amazing. It's beautiful. The food is great, and just the ambiance is relaxed.
Yeah. Um, you seem to have, you went through different styles, right? With different people, I guess, right? I mean, or it sounded like there were a few people that you played with in your past who were pretty much in the same tribe. And then there were others that were really out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
It's
ever
always
look?
nice. It's always nice to have strangers in the night syndrome. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the first time you meet somebody, and you play,
Yeah.
and not a word transpires.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in Europe, they really are adept at free jazz. I mean, it's not a joke. They are, because they have the classical tradition right there. They have Stravinsky and Bartok right on their doorstep. They don't have the blues. We
Yeah.
have the opposite. We have the blues, and the classical thing is not as pronounced. I'm exaggerating, of course, but so you're bound to at some point play with somebody from a different camp just by being around, and they'll say, "Oh man, I always enjoyed your playing. Oh, okay, nice to see you. I know you." Blah blah blah. And of course, the strangers in the night syndrome means that you're probably gonna not. It's gonna be hard to get too deep on it. You gotta play your surface stuff pretty well and everything. On the other hand, you are Dave Liebman, and you better be Dave Liebman for the next first 15 minutes at least. But jazz musicians are, as a breed, probably one of the nicest breeds you'll ever see, as far as just love and kindness and sense of humor and skills. Um, I remember when I got the NEA, the Jazz Masters thing, there was a lunch, and in this lunch were 40 guys. Everybody was there. It was happened to be still alive, a lot of them. I mean, dizzy, everything was like amazing. I was, with Karis. And the vibe in that room would not be the same if it was accountants, if it was truck drivers, if it was, piano tuners. The vibe in that room was unbelievable. These guys were enjoying every minute of it. They loved the food. This is at BMI. This is at Lincoln Center we're eating. I don't know which place it was. And I just noted to myself, I was the youngest. I was the youngest to get the award at that time. And I remember feeling like, who else would be, what other group of people, something common to them, would be as nice as these cats, as these guys and women too. I mean, unbelievable vibe. And jazz musicians are really, we know we're not going to make any money, so that takes that out of the way. All that's left is the music. It's like we've been stripped down to the essential thing, which is the music and the honesty that comes through the music. And I'm not sure you'd find that in other professions if they're sitting around the table.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm underrating or overrating, but that's what I think. Jazz musicians have a very beautiful MO.
Yeah.
This operandi is, everybody's personal and not everything's perfect, but in general, the music. It's because the music is so heavy.
Yeah.
The music leads the way. Music is always ahead of the people. Art is always ahead of the people, based on what a few other people did. But the music is an equalizer. It makes everybody equal for at least that 5 minutes.
And jazz is so geared towards, well, I don't want to say only improvisation, but you're always creating it. You're supposed to do that, and I think that leads people to the perspective that you're saying.
Yes. We're very lucky. I mean, and as the world crumbles around us, there'll still be a last man standing with a horn, or a woman singing her heart out. That's for sure.
I wanted to show the people your website because it's a pretty cool website, and here you are.
Masterclass.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a very nice site, and Here's the new book,
booklet,
booklet,
booklet.
and talking. This is a really nice way to, come into a small acknowledgement of who you are, and it looks like you got a lot of awards, right?
I guess, yeah, somehow.
Yeah, and then just some beautiful quotes. This is just uh, this. So, I mean, when I read these quotes, it was what I have thought of you.
And what
So
I
it was really cool. Yeah, a leader, an artist of integrity and independent direction. Wow,
yeah,
what could be better than that, man?
I would agree with that.
Very nice. So, and then all about your workshops, which is
Oh, from
really
student to artist was what I was talking about. That stage in between graduating and becoming a professional. That was the title, from student to artist.
right, right, right
Well,
here.
actually, two guys asking me questions. What I'm doing with my boys. The one in the band now, just
Yeah.
asking me about what goes on now that I'm done with school.
Right. And then your apprenticeship with Miles and Elvin and Coltrane and Miles and different musical topics. Yeah, it's really clear. And here's the chromatic approach to jazz melody and harmony and all the Bop Shop records. Is that yours? Your
Yeah,
company?
my CDs. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
They don't sell anything, but
right. All the accolades from 1976 on and various, yeah. I love this. What does it feel? What does it feel like when you are in the vortex, the eye of the hurricane?
that's the dizzy. That's dizzy saying it. It only happened a couple of times in life. For me, it is, but at least for the French, you are king of the world. For these moments when you're playing in front of a good rhythm section, I am simply the king of the world. Everything is perfect. One is in complete control. You can do whatever you want within that space inhabited at the moment. You are truly the master of the universe, not the cliche, the real deal. Getting to that place takes years of experience and observing those who are ahead of you online. There is a confidence, an unseen swagger, and assertiveness, even if the music is gentle. It's so good that you all want to do is repeat it like a junkie, hooked forever.
I love that. That reminds me, I can't remember who said that. See, now this is one of those things that I have to write down in this book in the future. But they said we were talking about people who had passed, and and they said I don't think of them in the past. I think of them in the future. They're leading me, which I thought was great. And that's what you just read. That was what you just read there
Yeah,
about yeah, observing those who are ahead of you online.
yes.
Yeah,
And they are, and you have to admit they're ahead of you. That
yeah,
takes 20, 30 years.
yeah. Um, if you wanted to tell people who are listening anything to kind of go away with today, what you want to say anything particular?
Well, I've talked enough, I think, because, I could talk forever. But it's the Jewish gift of gab.
You certainly are good at it, but you leave space too. I mean, I've actually said some things, so
Oh, no. No, I think anybody looking at this, I'm gratified that you're interested. It's somebody's life, and you know, I enjoy talking about the process. That's basically what this is all about. The process of becoming, first of all, a human being, obviously.
yeah,
The process of being an artist and what it means. And I have a lot of respect for that word as a designation of a lifestyle and of a way of being. Um, and not to denigrate anybody else, but we got it. We get it from the horse's mouth because you know what, Sonny Rollins is still alive, etc., etc. And I love the process. The book that I wrote in the '80s, Self Portrait of a Jazz Artist. That was all about my what I went through to become what I became, and the kind of music that made me what I am. Blah blah blah. And this little booklet, The Art of Skills, is kind of a cut down version of the Self Portrait book.
oh,
Self Portrait book. A lot of people liked it because no one had talked about the things I talk about.
yeah,
A little bit of that in this Art of Skills. Just of things that aren't necessarily discussed.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about the reed being broken, but what about the tsunami that's about to envelop you? Whatever. So I appreciate you taking the time, and you have some valuable archives here. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you came on. One more thing I just popped into my mind. I'm curious, and I think people would be interested. What do you is there? Let's see. The question is, how do you organize your practice?
I don't practice. I haven't practiced since I was graduated college and went away for 6 months to the Catskills, to Woodstock area, and put in the time that I had to put in a very ancient way because it was 1968. Um, I also, not to escape it, but you can't practice this music. You can't practice being awake and aware and responding unless you have a dummy in the room that you programmed. I mean, probably a robot that can interact with you. But basically, you practice the skills. You get your scales. You got to make sure your skills are together, your sound is together. But I used to, with Miles, we worked streaky. We'd work 3 4 weeks, be off for a month, like that. So when he was one time, we were off, and he got on the stage, and I know, bless you, I know that he had not put the horn to his mouth for a month. I just knew it because first of all his lifestyle. I was privy to that a little more, maybe not privy, but around, and he didn't seem to care. It didn't bother him. He looked over. He went. I pointed to his lip. He had those big sunglasses he wore all the time, and he would go like this, like, like what's going on, Dave? Just an expression of like, I don't know what I'm doing. But by the second set, and definitely by the next night, he had it together. So his thing was, he wasn't practicing. He let the naturalness of the situation be the practice. In other words, what am I going to play that has to do with yesterday? Why would I play what has to do with yesterday? Why would I play what has to do with tomorrow? Being there. That's our mantra. Being there. And I mean, that's one thing jazz musicians have trained themselves to do, is to be in the present time. No, there's no tomorrow and there's no yesterday. There is as soon as you stop playing, but when you're king of the world, like I just read, there is no timing. It's just, it just is. So I think that we practice. That's why we're good with Zen and things like that. We practice being there, and not being elsewhere. And their practices. I'd rather watch a movie. What I
Yeah.
mean? And I felt guilty for a while. But Miles, actually watching him, also he found that he missed a couple of notes. When I was that age, if I missed a note, I'd have a heart attack. God, I missed an F sharp. And he was missing notes all over the place for that first set that he hadn't played in 3 weeks, and it didn't seem to bother him except to face like I'm making. I mean, he was enveloped in the minute. The minute was okay. I didn't play. Okay, so F sharp sucks. Well, how about F? I don't know. I'm making things up. Just like, and it cooled me out from what had been like a, what do you call it? Not a horizontal edge.
Anxiety or something?
Yeah. The anxiety that I would approach the bandstand and be really, crazy. And also, we were playing very easy music. That's the other thing. It was all vamps, so it wasn't like I had to memorize or think about it. I just could play. But that cooled me out a lot, and because I wasn't a practicer. Look, Coltrane was a practicer. Sonny Rollins in his day when he had horns, he was a practicer. I don't know if Wayne's a practicer. I don't know if Joe Henderson was a practicer. I'm not sure. Somebody should do a survey. Did you ever practice? Did you practice? Most guys would say, I don't practice. I just do it. But to get to an honest answer would be really interesting. Of all the people I've interviewed, how many really did put time in practicing, or did they put it in and never do it again? So, maybe did it when you're 18, 19, 20. You get most of it done there anyway. You're not distracted. I tell them in this book, From Student to Artist, I say, you're going to have less time. You think you don't have time now? Wait till you get in the real world, my friend, and try to make a living and have to have your music ready in 12 staves, transposed if you want it played, blah, 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 blah. So, you better take advantage of your time now, because you're not going to have time. By the time you're 26, 28 years old, the clock is running out. You better know what you want to do and what you do well. And start thinking about getting to be around 30 years old when the chips are going to start falling down. Somebody gets sick, might need problems. Maybe the world has an endemic. Who knows? It's like do it while you're young. And most of the great cats did it when they were 18, 19, 20. That's when they practiced. That's when they got it together. Tony Williams, Paul Chambers, Steve Grossman, Michael was like that. They just did a lot of work when they were 14, 15, 16, 17, which is your most impressionable time. That's
Do
your
you
time when you start to see what's ahead and what came behind. At 14, 15, you got a little bit of history, but you got a goddamn gigantic world that you're entering. So being there in present time is nice. So I answer your question. I didn't practice.
and
I,
do you listen to music nowadays?
not much. No. I
Yeah.
mean, like movies, stuff like that. But if I listen to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I have a lot of stuff I have to check out, and I'm very, very on it. I don't want anybody else mixing until I say what it is. If it's my deal, it's going to be 100% my deal. I'll ask you when I need you.
Yeah. Well, all right. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
Cathy.
for that information. Dave, it's been really very nice to talk to you, and I really appreciate you hanging out for a few hours. I really do. Very nice. Thanks.
My pleasure. And last night was fun.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
It was wild. It was nice. I mean, what a
Yeah.
great premise.
It's always
So he
different.
was in Virginia. We were filming in Virginia. Did I get this right?
Yeah,
But, but
he's
everybody else was from another. They
yeah,
weren't. They
everybody's
weren't from Virginia.
such a mix of people, classical and jazz,
Yeah.
and yeah, the conversation is always different, every time, of course, because it's it's in the moment and who shows up and what's going on, and yeah, it's really
So,
fun.
you were here, there, where you are
Yeah,
now.
I was here.
I can't get over this shit because I'm still going like I think I said it before. I'm still going like Karis. We got to give them a cup of coffee. What do you mean give them a cup of coffee? They don't live here. They don't even live in the same state. I'm still stuck on the old paradigm.
Well, this is the fun part about moving ahead. Like you can actually have a visit with people, and get a little bit of a feeling.
You can't touch them. And I'll tell you, the first one I did at Smalls in September or October, we finished the tune and it was silence. And my daughter was there, and my wife, I don't know, was there maybe three people there, sound guy. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the most unatmospheric time to be at a place like that. Well, he did a decent job putting it together. And nobody applauded. And I'll tell you, I learned, it's ridiculous I say, but I revisited my respect for the audience because I was into like, the audience is lucky to be there. They're looking at skilled people do it. It's like a car. This guy tunes a car up like nobody else. Like, nobody else can play like we play, based on what we were doing for 2 hours here. And I missed the applause. And even I did one last week with Lovano. I missed the applause.
Yeah.
Afterwards, then whoever's there, 8 people, kind of embarrassed, and they're like, oh. So this music is meant for communication. And just to finish this, I really feel a draft for the students who are not getting the advantage of the interaction that you get it when you're in school.
Yeah, I feel
In
bad about
school,
that.
it's about networking and
Yeah.
forming. In music, it's about forming relationships that will definitely continue on after graduation. And they don't have it now. They're in the school. I mean, I have this NYU. They're from all over the world. They're coming to me on Tuesday, every other Tuesday. So it's hard to do the arts like this.
It is. I mean, I'm a hopeless idealist, but I really think that something that might come after. I mean, I don't. This is just one little idea, but because of that specific thing, I think people will be really hungry to play with each
Yes.
other afterwards, and they're going to create certain things.
Yes.
Maybe it'll be another kind of a jam session, or you know,
Voice seeks its own levels, and
yeah,
that will happen, I'm sure.
yeah.
Okay, and thank you.
Stay safe.
Be well, and tell Mark hello for me when you see him tomorrow.
Okay, be busy, and and I'm just going to tell people you could actually leave if you want to, or just wait for a second. I'm just going to tell people who's on.
All right.
Mark Copeland's coming on tomorrow. Mark is a cohort of Dave's, and he's a wonderful pianist. And then Thursday through Sunday, I repost from the archive. So.
Very good.
Yeah. So actually, there was a guy there yesterday with us, Dave, Bevan Manson. He's a genius piano player. He has one foot in classical and one in jazz, and he's just incredible. So he's going to be on Thursday, and then Janice Borla, jazz singer from Chicago, and David Pilch will be on Saturday, who's just an amazingly unique bass player, and a great Brazilian singer, Claudia Valello, will be on Sunday. And then if you want to find out who else, ahead of time, just go to my website, and you can also get the link for the archives so you can see all the 260 people that I've had on.
God bless you and good luck.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.